Wyoming was one of the first states to implement comprehensive rules on hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, and these rules have been enforced on all state, private, and federal minerals since 2010. We were the first state to require disclosure of all chemicals used in the fracking process prior to issuing a permit. In fact, Secretary of the Interior Sally Jewell often cites Wyoming's rules on fracking as a standard for other states to follow. Our rules governing wellbore integrity and water management have been in place for decades and are updated as new technologies become commonplace in the energy industry. Wyoming's new baseline water quality rule, which requires testing of offset water wells before and after the drilling of a well, and air quality rules in the Pinedale area are but a few of the many examples of Wyoming's progressive approach to rulemaking. Recently, the Bureau of Land Management announced a new rule on fracking. Not only does this rule come late, it adopts a one-size-fits-all approach. It creates confusion and bureaucracy in an already complex process. It will inevitably lead to delays in the permitting process for operators without increasing environmental protection or providing more information for the public to review. Wyoming maintains public access to the fracking plans, which includes all the chemicals used, as well as pre- and post-reporting on fracking operations in its files and electronically on its website. All the information collected on fracking operations is available to the public, to industry, and to other regulators for use in reviewing best management practices, determining fracking impacts to offset wells, or even for a homeowner who wants to know what is going on at the well near their home. Despite Mr. Cornsey's testimony, the BLM frac rule has no current method to provide any information on a publicly available website other than the post-fracking operations chemical disclosure reported to Frac Focus. While reporting the chemical information to Frac Focus or another publicly available database is vital, reviewing other details concerning the fracking operations can be just as important. It would be very difficult for anyone outside of the BLM staff to review information related to cement quality, well integrity, injection pressures, etc., using the current information systems employed by the BLM. All of this data is readily available on our website for public viewing. In its response to comments under federalism assessment, the BLM noted that they do not believe that production from federal lands will be reduced, and therefore no financial impacts would occur to states as a result of the new fracking rule. Currently in Wyoming, 54% of our oil production and 76% of gas production comes from federal minerals. To make a statement that the new fracking rule will not impact states such as Wyoming is simply wrong. Currently, Wyoming's average time for processing a drilling permit is 60 days, while the BLM processing time is 200 days. Further delays will occur with the BLM using the same staff that approves drilling permits to now also approve fracking operations. The practice of horizontal well drilling further complicates the approval of fracking operations. The practice of horizontal well drilling, more of the proposed wells in Wyoming are encountering a combination of minerals by drilling through and producing from a mixture of federal, fee, and state minerals. The uncertainty and potentially long wait times for BLM approval of fracking operations will act as encouragement for operators to exclude the federal minerals from the planned well. This will potentially strand the federal minerals, leaving them out of the production of the well and thus creating waste. There have already been several cases of federal minerals being excluded from drilling and spacing units that have been approved by my agency due to the length of time it takes for a BLM permit to be approved. The additional delays for approval of fracking operations by the BLM will clearly provide a disincentive to develop production on federal minerals. In comments to the federal fracking rule, several states, including Wyoming, requested exemptions for those states that already had comprehensive frac rules in place. The BLM, in an attempt to address those concerns, included a section in the final rule allowing for states to apply for a variance for all wells within the state. However, upon further review and meetings with BLM officials in Wyoming, it became apparent that the variance was simply a requirement that allowed the BLM to require additional information if the state's requirements exceeded those objectives of the BLM frac rule. In other words, it was a variance for the federal government. The goal being that both the state and the BLM would receive the same package of information. This is clearly a duplication of effort that forces operators to comply with two regulatory agencies. The Wyoming Oil and Gas Conservation Commission has one office versus the BLM, who has 9 field offices in Wyoming. which can lead to varying interpretations when implementing the new frac rule. This creates confusion and uncertainty and leads to unnecessary delays in the permitting process. A better solution would be a mechanism to allow states to apply for primacy if they could demonstrate that the objectives of the BLM frac rule could be met by the state's rules and regulations. This would provide certainty and uniformity in enforcing a frac rule for the benefit of citizens and the oil and gas industry. The Underground Injection Control Program, a program that regulates injection wells, is a prime example of a federal rule that is implemented and enforced by the states. In conclusion, Wyoming believes that the states are best positioned to regulate hydraulic fracturing. Wyoming has successfully imposed its hydraulic fracturing rule on federal, state, and private minerals for 5 years and has an experienced and qualified staff to enforce these rules. This concludes my oral testimony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Watson.